You said that one more time.
So I'm actually looking at page 2, but it's the gain loss under extraordinary items.
Oh, that's the difference between what we dispose versus its value in the system.
Mhm.
And I think that was because there was a couple of them that maybe had salvage values on them. I don't have that paper with me, but anytime that there was a salvage value set up, we aren't going to ever get as much as the salvage value
Right.
says.
I can't remember. Do we depreciate or
We
stuff?
do.
Okay.
Yeah, and all of that is handled through Weavis, but completely off of the regular books.
Hmm.
So in Gilmer, that was done with a spreadsheet up until this past year. And after we survived the audit, Steve Peer, that was his last thing he's been helping me with, is get all of that put into Weavis so that we could actually have really good Weavis information instead of relying on these spreadsheets that came from them. They were valued like many, many, many years ago. I think when it was first implemented in 2002 is what we determined. So now it's all in Weavis. We add our assets there, dispose of them there, and it does all the calculations for depreciation. None of that is handled manually now.
Okay.
I mean, we check it obviously, but it's not done manually.
Nice.
Okay, so like I was saying, those are the different, what I call buckets going across the top there, the different pots of money that we spend. And most of those are given to us by the state or the federal government and prescribed by them, exactly what we're to do with the money. For example, the Capital Projects Fund, that's a pretty easy one. That's where we get SBA funds from. And you can see there we had like $1.2 million in capital outlay in that program for last year, all total. That was finishing up a couple of things, starting the freezer and completely finishing the animal processing, because it was booked at like $923,000, something like that.
For the total assets under general current expense, so it would be page 3. Is there a break in your formula with the total? There's just a bunch of hashtags.
Oh, probably on total revenue.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably because it's larger than the column is.
Well, I mean, so it should be fine because you've got 4 million at the top and it's going to be 4 or 5 million at the bottom. So it's page 3.
Oh, maybe you're
total assets.
Oh yeah, it's just that column. It's just they do that sometimes. Like they'll have a different. That's why I said I didn't pretty it up. I just didn't have time. They'll have a different like number type in there in Excel.
Okay.
And it'll just make it so big it can't put it in there. I do have a copy, maybe.
Well, as long as it's right before we send it off.
It's definitely right. Definitely right. Yeah, I have a copy with me. That number should be $4,437,043.46.
Okay.
Because you have it in yours too, because that's the next page I want to talk about. Okay, so where the little red tab is, this is everyone's favorite tab. It takes that sheet that I gave you that I said I really like to look at because I think it gives us a lot of good information. It tells us by the buckets what we've spent and what assets we have versus what liabilities we have. What the little red tab shows you is truly the bottom line. So for the end of 2024, we had a total fund balance of almost $5 million, which is fantastic. And you can see at the bottom of that sheet that I have the red tab on how that's broken down, because we have to break it down into different categories. The non-spendable category, that is something that is locked down to a very specific, very narrow definition. And that one happens to be, we get money at the retirement board when someone leaves and they're not fully vested. This is the TDC program, the newer one. When they're not fully vested, that money comes back to us. So that money is housed there for us to spend from that fund. So that is separate and is considered non-spendable because it can only be spent down there at the retirement board. The committed monies, that's where the majority of that is, and that's things like where we set aside money for Project Connect or Step 7, those things that the state says, we really want you to set these aside, but now they're not restricted. So they're considered committed in the regular fund balance. Assigned, those are what we had left in encumbrances at the end of the year that were not already in a committed project. So these were just regular old POs that we had open. There was 2. One was for, I believe we put security cameras somewhere.
Football
right there.
field.
Okay, yeah, right there at the end of the year. So it was still outstanding. And then we had one person traveling that kind of crossed years, and that one was still outstanding. So that's what the $13,000 is. So our true fund balance that we can do something with is the $1.3 million, which again is still really, really good. But I always have to give a little, caution speech. The red block in the middle explains that we used $460,000 to balance the budget. So we truly only have extra of $880 that we can determine as a group, like what our greatest needs are. The state recommends anywhere from a 3 to 15% carryover. So, I'm always going to be asking you to hold on to it as much as you can. And I think that's the way Dr. Minnie feels about most of it.
Yeah, this is the first time since I've been here where I've known what our unassigned is. And probably you guys too.
Yes.
So we want to set and get some goals and set some long-term goals where we want to be in our unassigned balance next year, the year after, the year after. We also want to decide how much of that we want to spend and what we want to spend it on and where we want to put it at. We definitely want a healthy unassigned carryover. So, and I think this proves to the board that we are flush and we have plenty. And we really need that. But in order to reach larger goals and do things in the future, we don't want to spend that unassigned all at once, but we want to make sure that these things, because we have the money to do what we need to do. We just need to plan and do those things and plan it out and keep a good unassigned carryover from year to year. But like Ginger and I were saying, we're having this conversation. What's too much? Well, 3 years from now, would we like to have $3 million in unassigned? So when we got a project that we say, we need this, then we can go do that. And that's where we want to be. And this is a good start. I think this is a really good start to that.
I always kind of liken it to your savings account that you maintain personally. What is a reasonable savings? Like, you don't want to go broke in your daily life to put money in savings, but you also don't want to, if you need a hot water heater, that you can't just take out of your savings and go purchase a hot water heater. So we kind of just need to balance that. As a group, we just all need to determine what our goals are and move forward with that. But that is really good news. I don't get to give you really good news very often, but I feel like that's really good news because and that's actually numbers that I could prove and document, and that makes me feel really good because since I got here in April, I haven't been able to stand here and say this is your number, but this is your number.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm totally glad to see that.
So I don't know what percentage that is, but it's a 3 to 15%. Some counties, a lot of other superintendents talk and they'll brag about their unassigned, well, I have $20 million in unassigned, or I got $50 million. I'm sure Doddridge County has $80 million in their unassigned. It's a bunch. We want to make sure that we're doing educational programs to reach our kids. We got growth that we have to have, but we also want to have a large unassigned in case we want to go buy a piece of property to build a new school or run a bond or build a weight room or do whatever. We need to make sure we're able to do those things. And this is the first time, and I congratulate Ginger. I really appreciate it. This is the first time I can say this is what we have. So this is unassigned. This is unassigned funds. We're beyond flush. This is a good percentage of our overall budget. I don't know what percentage it is, but
I didn't strike a percentage.
But it's good.
It's good.
And I think the community needs to know that. And we need to plan some long-term goals. Can we spend some of this? Yes, but let's plan some long-term goals. What do we want to have 2 years from now and 3 years from now in our unassigned in case we need it, or in case we want to do a project, or in case we want to put additional money out to do a bond to build a new school, or whatever we want to do. So this is what I consider the first time since I've been here where I can say, this is it.
You know how much of a pot that you have to pull from it.
Exactly.
That's no strings attached.
No strings attached money. It's not
That's what I-
committed. That is what we got.
Well, and I'm a little too conservative, but I like that 15% carryover, but that's.
I mean, now that number though, I mean, yeah, at least. I get it.
Ginger?
Yes, sir.
What would a 3%, ask you two questions here. What would a 3% carryover, that be? For contingency, how much would that come out to be?
She's getting her phone here for you.
80.
Real quick. I don't want to take up a lot of time.
71.
I think I think the way they calculate it is general fund expenditure.
3% would be 26,000, 26 and a half, 26,417 would be 3% of that.
I think the way they do that is based on our expenditures in the general fund. So 3% of general fund expenditures is $336,498.
That's a lot more. You're talking about, they want 3% of our whole total budget.
Yes.
Not out of our,
Total expenditure.
not out of that 880.
Yeah.
Oh, golly, that's a
No.
lot more money.
No, so let's see what that would be.
That's not near as fun to have to put away.
I think we're at like 2 now.
Yeah.
She's checking how much it'll be at 15.
So the
now,
total,
Mr.
the total's the 4 mil, isn't it? The 4.4, almost 4.5, closer to 5.
So 1.7 million is 15%. So we're in the good range. We just need to keep it there, and on whichever.
Save for another year, yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
And
what I was coming at was, you basically have $450,000 basically takes the balance of the budget, so that's up to state. So if we take the 3%, the state mandates as the minimum, that was 350, so that's roughly $400,000 of, with the money that's not the state doesn't say you have to have, and we know we're gonna have to have $4.5 million to do that.
that's right.
So unrestricted or whatever, use a different word, but for me, that's about what is left that you don't have to have. I mean, that's something you can do something with. You can't do too much with it, because if you have a air conditioner heater go down, it's all gone.
Right.
It's like your excess leftover.
Yeah.
But it's still a good number and a really good starting point for this board, I think.
Yes. Well, absolutely. I agree with. I mean, if people are gonna say, no, you got $1 million carryover, you don't have it, you take 4.5 to balance, and then that's the 8, you said.
Right.
8 requires a minimum of 3, and requires you better off to 5. So you're only dealing with about $200,000, $300,000 that before you get into hot water.
I agree with all of that. That's accurate.
So that's what I was trying to say. I mean, because when the public sits here and sees they had $1 million carryover, you really don't. So you only got, like I said, at best, $2,500, $3,500 in that realm. That's not a lot.
If I got to write this report myself, that's what I would include. That's why I always present that to you. I would say, how much did we use to balance the budget? How much have we already committed to an SBA project? That is not considered here. So those are things that their formulas don't show you, that we have already determined as a board to do. And so yes, it is really good news, but we just have to take it for what it is and be careful with it. And we're really fortunate. Our superintendent really believes in keeping things tight and watching all the money, especially personnel, because personnel in my history has really gotten people in big trouble. Being so far into the formula, they can't pay the bills. I've seen it. So
Absolutely. Understood. Like I said, That's why I said what I said, so it's not, when people, they don't hear the part, they don't hear the middle, they don't hear where the rest of it is allocated to go. So yes, I agree, we got a good starting point.
We got a good point. We want to sit down at some point in time, next couple weeks, and say, okay, this is what we got. This is what we are thinking about allocating to do some school improvement. This is what we have, but this is where we want to go with our fiscal goals for the next year, for the next 2 years, for the next 3 years, and try to reach those fiscal goals. And that way we know we can get closer to, instead of, using 10%, you got 15%. And we want to make sure the district is as flush as it can be.
And we definitely want to put our money towards student outcomes. That's what we're here for, and we want to be able to have that money to do that with. If we need something to move the needle, we want to make it happen.
One more point about that money is, for perspective, is it's like 1 month's worth of expenses here. So,
Yeah.
for the county. That's it. But because you're a government entity, you're getting tax funds and state funding, and your revenue's not subjected like a business would on your output necessarily. But just to put it in perspective, it's not like it's a huge
So-
amount of money.
Out of the 880, we're already spending some of that in other programs that we've already enacted. Or does this take in the other stuff that we've already
Well,
said that we're gonna?
if we've already said we were doing it, then we've done it. Like, for example, we funded Project Connect for next year again.
That's what I'm saying. So that's already taken out of here?
No,
Well, it
no.
was in the 460 that we balanced the budget with.
Okay.
So we presented a balanced budget, and part of that
Okay.
budget, if those things were funded, then that's included already.
Okay.
So this would be above that.
Okay.
But we didn't have anywhere to put the SBA project, because that literally just happened, a month ago. It was
Right.
Terrible timing, because I had to give an amount that I wasn't comfortable with, because I didn't know what the end of the number was. And I couldn't even get close at that point. Most of the time I can get an educated guess going, but until I did all of this work, there was not a way for me to know. But I actually feel pretty good in the numbers now, and I feel like for 25 that we're on the right track to be able to watch it more closely and be able to give you guys some information as we go along instead of.
So we can plan better,
Yeah,
for the
I'd
future.
love to help you plan and make decisions based on real numbers and not just.
Be nice.
And I want to thank Ginger, because we have, this is on time and it's accurate, and I think we value that, and it's going to allow us to be able to make decisions. And this being done like that at this point in time will allow us to make decisions that will impact students this year. So I really appreciate that and the hard work. I know it's a lot of extra work, and it's due and we've got it done, and we haven't been good at doing that, having the reports and things done on time, and you're brand new and you're getting that done. I commend you for it.
It would be really hard to help you make financial decisions as the year goes if we didn't have it done. And we had to wait till March or April again to know what the numbers are. So, yeah, I want to stay on this track for as long as my brain continues. Okay, so I don't have anything else specific. I know Mr. Freshour's been really looking at some stuff. He may have additional questions, and I'm happy to go over anything else that seems confusing. The way I look at the notes, they're kind of like an expanded word problem for the items in the other statements, in the actual numbers that I just went over with you. So you'll find lots of great information in those, but really it's just words where these are just strictly numbers. So that's how I look at it.
Oh, yeah. Well, so the notes will paint the picture of what's occurred in a little bit more detail, to your point. I just had a question on the budget variance reports that we see here, budget to actual. So first question is just how the state looks at that stuff. Is there any concerns when they see variances
They're
or?
not super happy over, okay, so for the rest of you, we're looking at ones that say requires supplemental information. And they say schedule of revenue and expenditures and changes in fund balance, budget and actual. And it starts with general fund and then there's special revenue for the schools, special revenue ESSER and capital.
Starts at page 6 for me.
Yeah, I don't know if those numbers are the same on everybody's. So yes, that's a good question. They're not super happy when we go above, like if you look at,
The general is probably the worst, I think.
so like central services, we overspent what we had budgeted by $111,439.36. They don't love that. They want us to budget a little better. And I wholeheartedly agree. We just, I was really late to the party and have had a lot to do since then, so I don't have it as close as I normally would. And then there's always sometimes another factor, like sometimes late in the process, we find out we're supposed to be charging something one place that we had charged elsewhere and had the budget for elsewhere, and that could also be the case, because when we got right down there to the end, there were some things that I didn't feel like were expended in the right line, and I may have gotten the expense moved and not the budget, so that does happen. In fact, when we write those in the notes, we say that, so like if you look at instruction, we budgeted $1.4 million more in instruction than we actually spent. So that overage covered the expenditures and the other ones that were short. So they don't love it, but as long as we're maintaining those, overall it was good, then normally there won't be an issue with that.
Is there much between the original and final budgeted amounts? I mean, obviously those change too. So is there much attention to that sort of stuff?
There's a lot of attention to that on my part because I feel like we should be able to rely on the courts. I want when Dr. Money comes to my office and says, can we do this? I want to be able to pick up a piece of paper and say, yes, or, that's really going to be tight. So I try to watch that and really change those as we go along. And that's where it's really gonna help when we're letting you guys review those reports. Because as we're spending, then you're gonna say, well, wait a minute, there's not gonna be enough money here to spend the way we've been spending. Do we need to move more money there? And if so, from where? So those are the things I'd like to move toward. We just aren't quite there yet.
So it's not uncommon though to change from when you start the budget at the start of the year to
No,
make
it's
updates to it.
Very, very common to have to make changes.
And then I know that's a struggle when we didn't have 100% on our numbers when setting the budget. So
Right.
I don't know, any anticipations there through this year on how close we'll be or how many changes?
We're gonna have some. In fact, if you would look at my budget document, I told you that I just had to do, what we've done historically. It has lots of red lines through it right now because I'm like, we need money here and we don't need this money here. So as I'm learning and spending it, then I'm actually changing the document that's gonna drive that in the future.
But the main thing is the final budget is close to what the actuals end up.
Yes. I don't feel like anything is completely out of whack, like as far as I didn't budget nearly enough of something yet. I mean, I haven't seen that. We're pretty early on for that to show up. But just where it was spent versus where we have it budgeted is my issue right now.
So yeah, it looks like overall we budgeted more than we ended up spending on most categories then, at least in total.
Right.
So that's the main, that's good. That's really all I had as far as my questions. I'm sure there's a.
You got any questions, Mr. Chapman?
I was getting ready to make a motion.
You go right ahead, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the annual fiscal statements for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024 for Gilmer County Board of Education.
Okay, I got a motion and a second to approve the financial statements for the FY 2023-2024 school year as presented by Ginger. Is there any further discussion or amendments to that main motion?
No, thank you very much, Ginger, for all your work and put into this. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. All righty, we have some bills for payments. I'll let Ginger address those real quick.
Just actually have one. We discovered that somehow this bill from back in May got missed. We don't know if it maybe came to an old email address. We have had that happen a few times because there's a lot of change over there, so. Anyway, it was missed. We definitely did not pay it and we need to get it paid, so.
Make,
Because that batch total is not right, because it's 200 times the $12.99. The batch total is definitely
I
not
was
$12.99.
about to
Okay.
ask. That seems
I make a
pretty
motion to approve bills to be paid.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second to approve the bills for payment as presented. Is there any further discussion or amendments to that main motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. All righty, we're to personnel. Dr. Manning.
Just a couple. We had a resignation. Bobby Nicholas, head Mini Titan football coach. And then resignation, Kelsey Hickman, SAT coordinator 912.
So just a question, how does that work when the coach resigns in the middle of the season?
We're going to post the job and hire a new coach.
And we pay based on the number of days.
Yeah.
Typically, it's prorated.
Yeah, we have not paid the position, and we've kind of changed that practice where we pay it when service is rendered now, and so he has not been getting payment.
That is correct. We are paying coaches now at the end.
So he'll get a prorated amount.
Because this is a problem.
Throughout the state, okay.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the resignation and recommendation by the superintendent.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve the resignations as recommended by the superintendent. Is there any further discussion or amendments to that main motion? I'd just like to say, thank Bobby for, all this. He's had a lot of years in the county of service, and just, thank you to him for what he's done for the football teams over the years.
I'd second that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there- Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. We adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Oh, my God.